Joran's workshop was small, tucked between towering cargo bays and humming starships at the edge of the spaceport. The walls were covered with tools, energy conduits and scattered alien devices, some of which he didn't even know the full purpose of yet. Sparks flickered from a half-fixed drone hovering in the corner, and the soft hum of machinery filled the air. Joran wiped his hands on a grease-stained rag and glanced around. Another day, another machine to fix, another problem to solve, but none of it came with payment. He never asked for credits. He never demanded anything. Some called him strange, others whispered that he was reckless. Despite the gossip, Joran kept working. He loved the challenge of repairing what others had given up on. A broken starship engine? He could coax it back to life. A damaged drone? He could make it fly like new. Even alien tech that defied explanation, he had a knack for understanding it. Word had spread across the port, the human who charged nothing. Some said he was a fool, others said he was a miracle worker. Either way, he did not care. Helping others was enough reward. As the morning sun glinted off polished metal and thrusters, a low rumble shook the spaceport. Joran looked up from a half-repaired energy conduit and saw a massive, sleek ship descending into the landing bay. Its black hull gleamed under the lights, and insignia he didn't recognize marked it as an official vessel. Something about its presence was different, urgent, deliberate. Then came the footsteps, heavy, armored, and numerous. Joran straightened. The Royal Guard. The leader of the group was a tall alien named Chiral. His armor reflected the sun, and weapons were clearly visible on his belt. Yet it wasn't the weapons that made Joran tense, it was the weight of authority, of expectation that pressed down. Chiral's eyes scanned the workshop, pausing on every tool, every piece of machinery before finally resting on Joran. "Human," he said, his voice deep and resonant, "you have been seen aiding starships without license or payment. Explain yourself." Joran set down his tools carefully. He didn't flinch. "I fix what I can," he said calmly. "Ships, drones, machines. If I can help, I do. That is all." His voice was quiet, but there was firmness in it. The guards exchanged glances. They had heard whispers of his work, machines repaired that should have been irreparable, but never of one who refused payment. "Why do you not charge?" Chiral asked, stepping closer. Joran shrugged, wiping his hands again. "Credits don't matter to me. Life matters more. Machines keep people alive, help them survive. That's reward enough." The Royal Guard wasn't used to hearing words like that from someone so small, so ordinary looking. Their experiences with humans were often transactional, motivated by profit, politics, or fear. But this human was different. There was no calculation in his eyes, only a steady focus and quiet confidence. Chiral's tone sharpened. "Some say your interference could affect royal operations. How do you justify that?" Joran gestured toward the scattered machines in the workshop. "I do not interfere in politics or authority. I fix what is broken. If my work helps or hinders, that is not my concern. I only repair, restore, and maintain. Nothing more." The alien leader studied him closely, trying to find a flaw, a deceit, but found none. One of the younger guards whispered something to Chiral, and the leader's gaze flicked toward a hovering drone that had just activated. It had been abandoned by its previous owner, and Joran had coaxed it to life. The drone moved smoothly, energy flowing evenly, sensors bright. Chiral's eyes narrowed. "Your skill is unusual. Some might call it dangerous." Joran shook his head. "Dangerous? No. Useful, yes. I do not harm. I only restore." The guard stepped inside, careful, weapons at the ready, scanning every corner. Joran didn't move. He kept working, adjusting a power conduit, fine-tuning a small thruster. His hands were steady, his mind focused. Even under the scrutiny of the Royal Guard, he remained calm. Every tool he touched, every adjustment he made, reflected a skill honed by years of patience and observation. Chiral stepped closer, inspecting a partially fixed starship engine. He bent slightly, studying the wiring and energy flows. "You understand alien technology better than most of our engineers," he said, almost in disbelief. Joran simply nodded. "I observe, I learn, I fix. That is all I do." The alien leader's posture stiffened. It was clear he didn't fully approve, but he couldn't deny what he saw. The human was extraordinary, yet not boastful. He worked not for power, not for reward, but because he wanted to. As the sun reached its peak over the spaceport, Joran straightened and gestured toward the door. "If you are here to challenge me, the work waits. If you are here to watch, then stay, but the engines will not fix themselves." Chiral considered the words carefully. The guards around him shifted uneasily. This human's confidence was not arrogance. It was genuine skill paired with a sense of purpose. And it unsettled them. The tension lingered as the royal guard observed quietly, and Joran returned to his work. Sparks flew, humming machines came alive, and the small workshop thrummed with life. For the first time, the guard saw not just a human mechanic, but a force of skill, patience, and principle. And they began to understand that this simple man, who charged nothing, might be more important than any of them realized. Outside, the spaceport buzzed with activity, unaware that within a small workshop, a human's quiet work had already caught the attention of the highest authorities. Joran did not notice their curiosity, nor did he care. He fixed what was broken, helped where he could, and remained steady, calm, and focused. The mysterious mechanic who charged nothing, yet had drawn the eyes of the royal guard. The morning air at the spaceport was thick with tension. Joran had barely finished checking a small cargo shuttle when a loud alarm echoed across the docks. A massive cargo ship, its hull streaked with scratches and burn marks, limped into the port. Engines sputtered, smoke rising in thin clouds. Alien crew members ran frantically across the deck, shouting in a language Joran did not fully understand, but the urgency was clear. The ship's cargo was valuable, critical supplies for the planet's hospitals, and without repair lives could be lost. Joran set down his tools and walked calmly toward the landing ramp. He didn't need orders, he instinctively knew what had to be done. The royal guard, led by Chiral, had followed him to the scene, their presence tense and watchful. "Human," Chiral said sharply, "do not interfere. This cargo is under royal protection." Joran didn't flinch. "If it fails, people will die. I will help." His voice was steady, filled with certainty. The alien leader's gaze narrowed, but he allowed it. Sometimes even authority had to trust skill over fear. Joran reached the cargo bay and immediately assessed the situation. The ship's main engines were unstable, power conduits sparking dangerously, life support systems flickering. Crew members hovered nearby, unsure of what to do, their usual protocols useless against imminent failure. Joran knelt, running his hands over the control panels and circuits, sensing the flow of energy like a living thing. "I need space," he said quietly, and the crew stepped aside. Even the royal guard gave him room, watching silently as he began work. Minutes passed, each second critical. Sparks flew from broken conduits and energy arcs threatened to overload the ship's systems. But Joran worked methodically, reconnecting circuits, rerouting power, and stabilizing the engines. His hands moved with precision, each adjustment calculated yet instinctive. The crew exchanged nervous glances, amazed at the calmness of this human who seemed unbothered by the danger. Chiral studied him carefully, trying to understand the strange combination of skill, courage, and lack of concern for reward. The ship's engines roared weakly but steadily as Joran completed a critical connection. A loud alarm indicated the life support system had failed, and the cargo, medicines and energy cells, was at risk of damage. Without hesitation, Joran climbed into the engine compartment, using his knowledge of alien machinery to stabilize the energy flow manually. Sparks flew around him, and the heat of the failing systems brushed against his skin, but he ignored it. Focused entirely on his task, he brought the energy readings into balance, forcing the engines to hum at a safe level. The crew watched, silently holding their breath. They had never seen a human work with such speed and confidence, especially without any concern for payment or recognition. The royal guard, usually critical and suspicious, exchanged subtle nods. They had expected a fuss, perhaps resistance or bargaining, but instead they witnessed skill, determination, and principle in action. Joran finished the final adjustments, clambering out of the engine compartment as the cargo ship stabilized completely. "Is it safe?" one of the aliens asked, voice trembling. Joran checked the consoles, nodded, and said simply, "For now. Engines are stable, life support is operational. You can continue your journey." The crew stared, incredulous. Not only had he repaired their ship under impossible conditions, but he had done so without asking for anything in return. They had expected greed, negotiation, or at least thanks in some structured form. But Joran simply smiled, wiped his hands, and stepped back. Chiral approached, his eyes sharp, trying to hide his awe. "How do you do it?" he asked. "How can you fix alien technology of this complexity without formal training or approval?" Joran shrugged lightly. "I watch. I learn. I try. Machines are tools, energy flows are patterns. Understanding them comes from attention and patience, not rank or license." Chiral's expression hardened, but he could not hide the respect creeping into his voice. Even the royal guard had to acknowledge the human's skill. The cargo crew murmured among themselves, whispers of disbelief and admiration spreading quickly. Joran didn't respond. He simply returned to his workshop, adjusting small devices as he walked. Cairo followed more closely, his questions still unasked but his curiosity growing. This human did not work for glory, for payment, or for recognition. He worked because it was right, because lives depended on it, and because he could. As the ship's crew prepared to leave, one of them handed Joran a small token of thanks, an energy crystal meant to power a machine in their home system. Joran looked at it, then placed it gently on a shelf. "Keep it safe," he said softly. "I only did what needed to be done." Cairo watched the exchange, noting how unusual it was for someone to act with such selflessness, and he realized that this human's actions carried a power far beyond mere mechanical skill. The day ended with the cargo ship departing safely, engines humming, life support functioning, and the Royal Guard left with a quiet acknowledgement of something they had not expected to see: courage without calculation, skill without ambition, and the quiet power of doing good simply because it was necessary. Joran returned to his workshop, back to his machines, sparks flying, humming and buzzing filling the air once more. And in that quiet corner of the spaceport, the human mechanic who charged nothing had just saved countless lives, and caught the attention of those who had the power to change the galaxy. The Royal Guard followed Joran back to his workshop, moving cautiously among the hum of machines and scattered tools. Cairo's armored footsteps echoed across the metal floor, eyes scanning every corner, every glowing panel. He had seen skill before, but this human's calm confidence and ability to repair the impossible without concern for payment had unsettled him. Something about Joran was different, and Cairo needed to understand it. "Show us everything," Cairo said firmly, his voice resonating in the small workshop. "Every device, every machine. Nothing hidden." Joran nodded, unflustered. "Very well," he replied. "But be careful. Some of these devices are unstable and curious hands may cause problems." He led them through rows of humming machines and half-repaired starships, pointing out tools, panels and energy conduits. The Royal Guard observed silently, noting the efficiency of his organization despite the apparent chaos. Sparks flickered from a hovering drone Joran had repaired the day before, its sensors blinking in a rhythmic pattern. "It's functional," Joran said casually, "but it is not fully operational yet. I will need time to stabilize its energy flow." Cairo's eyes narrowed. "You seem to understand alien technology better than many of our engineers. How is that possible?" Joran paused beside a glowing device in the corner of the workshop. It was small, pulsating with an eerie, soft light. "This," he said, gesturing toward it, "is a prototype. It can stabilize energy distribution across multiple systems simultaneously. If understood, it could save lives on a large scale." The Royal Guard leaned closer, the seriousness of the device dawning on them. Their planet had suffered repeated energy shortages, and technology like this could change everything. Cairo's tone was cautious. "This device, it could be dangerous in the wrong hands." Joran shook his head. "Danger is created by fear, not machines. I only build what I understand and I only use it to help. That is my rule." The alien leader studied him carefully. A human who worked without ambition, without desire for recognition or reward, was rare, even unprecedented. Yet here stood Joran, unyielding in his calm confidence. The guards moved closer to inspect the prototype. Some murmured warnings, discussing the possible misuse of such energy. Joran guided them patiently. "See, energy flows like water. Too fast it breaks. Too slow it stagnates. Balance is the key." He adjusted a dial and the device's glow steadied, filling the workshop with a soft, steady light. Cairo noticed how methodical Joran was, not careless, not reckless, but precise, patient, and aware of every consequence. "Have you used this in the field?" Cairo asked. "Not yet," Joran replied, "but it has potential to stabilize damaged ships, repair power grids, and even prevent catastrophic failures." The Royal Guard glanced at one another. They had come to question him, perhaps punish him, or at least control his actions. But instead, they were confronted with potential that could benefit their entire society. A young guard, curiosity overtaking caution, reached out to touch a smaller device on a nearby bench. Sparks leapt from the device and a low hum filled the room. Joran placed a steady hand over the device and the sound faded. "Careful," he said gently. "Machines do not forgive carelessness. Respect what you do not fully understand." The guard nodded quickly, realizing this human's quiet authority was based not on weapons or rank, but knowledge, skill, and principle. Cairo's eyes softened slightly. You have been helping more than starships and cargo. You have been preparing for something greater. Joran nodded, not proud but matter of fact. I repair what I can. I help where I can. If that inspires others, that is fortunate. If it changes things, that is even better. But I act only because it is necessary, not for glory or reward. The royal guard realized that his words were more than a statement. They were a philosophy, one that defied the transactional logic of most civilizations. The workshop seemed alive, humming with energy, machines, and the subtle vibrations of possibility. Joran moved from device to device, showing Chiral and the guards how he balanced power, repaired conduits, and monitored energy patterns. Each demonstration was precise, deliberate, and enlightening. The royal guard, usually quick to assert authority, found themselves learning instead of commanding. Chiral finally spoke, his voice quieter than before. Human, your skill is extraordinary. Your principles, even more so. You act without ambition, yet your work carries power beyond most of our leaders. Why? Joran smiled faintly. Power means little if it is not used to help. Ambition is dangerous when it blinds you to consequences. I fix what is broken and I leave the rest to those who will act. That is enough for me. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. They had arrived expecting defiance, excuses, or rebellion. Instead, they witnessed patience, confidence, and a quiet moral strength. It unsettled them and forced reflection. Even Chiral, stern and decisive as he was, could not deny the human's impact. As the inspection ended, Joran returned to a partially repaired drone, finishing adjustments with calm focus. Chiral stepped back, realizing that the human's abilities extended far beyond mechanics. Knowledge, courage, patience, and selflessness combined to form a force that no weapon could match. For the first time, the Royal Guard understood that some humans did not seek reward or recognition, but their influence was powerful nonetheless. The workshop, once a small corner of the spaceport, now felt like a hub of possibility, innovation, and quiet strength. Joran continued his work, unaware of the awe surrounding him. For him, there was only repair, only improvement, only helping what was broken. For the Royal Guard, there was something more. The beginning of understanding that this simple human who charged nothing might change more than just machines, he could change the course of events for the entire planet. Outside, the sun reflected off the hulls of departing ships. Inside, the workshop glowed with energy and quiet purpose. Joran moved from machine to machine, humming softly. He fixed what was broken, he taught by example, and he remained calm, unassuming, and endlessly capable. The Royal Guard watched silently, realizing that this human's secret was not in the machines, but in the man himself. The spaceport was unusually quiet when the alarms began ringing. Joran was adjusting a delicate energy conduit when the warning lights flashed red. Outside, a convoy of trade ships was under attack. Explosions rocked the docks and smoke curled into the sky. The Royal Guard was already mobilizing, weapons ready, but hesitation showed in their movements. The attackers were fast, aggressive, and well-armed. Civilians and crews scrambled, unsure of how to survive the sudden chaos. Chiral looked at Joran, expecting the human to step back. But Joran's calm voice cut through the panic. They need help. Let's go. Without hesitation, he grabbed a small hovercraft, tools and energy pack strapped to his back. The Royal Guard followed reluctantly, unsure what to expect. Joran guided the craft toward the convoy, scanning the surrounding area with sharp eyes. Engines here are weak, he said, pointing to a damaged transport. We can stabilize them if we move fast. Chiral nodded, impressed despite himself. As they approached the first ship, Joran jumped from the hovercraft onto the deck, tools in hand. Sparks flew from damaged conduits and smoke choked the corridors. Crew members were trapped, their attempts to fix the engines failing. Joran moved quickly, rerouting power, patching broken lines, and stabilizing critical systems. Each motion was precise, practiced, and efficient. The Royal Guard watched, some helping under his direction, some guarding the area from attackers. Watch the flares. Joran shouted, moving to another engine room as a section of the ceiling collapsed. He lifted a panel just in time, deflecting sparks from falling directly onto the fuel lines. The crew stared in awe at his confidence, his ability to remain calm under pressure. Chiral, standing nearby, realized that this human skill was more than mechanical. It was courage, creativity, and decisive action all in one. The attackers advanced, weapons firing, attempting to breach the last transport. Joran coordinated with the Royal Guard, directing energy flows to reinforce shields and reroute power to defensive systems. Divert the main conduits to the aft engines, he instructed. that will give them speed and stability. The guards followed his orders, surprised by how quickly he understood the ship's technology. One of them muttered, "He's doing what none of us could, and he's not even armed for battle." Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Explosions shook the ships and alarms screamed continuously. Joran moved tirelessly from ship to ship, fixing engines, stabilizing life support systems, and calming panicked crews. At one point, a small cargo bay filled with volatile energy cells threatened to explode. Joran climbed inside, adjusting conduits and vents with steady hands, sweat on his brow but focus unbroken. Sparks flew dangerously close, yet he never wavered. The Royal Guard began to notice the difference his actions made. Where panic had ruled, organization emerged. Where destruction threatened, stability returned. Civilians and crews looked to him, not as a human, not as a mechanic, but as a source of hope and safety. Kyrill's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. This was more than skill, it was leadership without command, courage without demand, and principle without reward. Finally, the last transport was stabilized. Engines hummed steadily, shields held strong, and the attackers were forced to retreat as reinforcements arrived. Joran climbed back onto his hovercraft, wiping soot from his hands, breathing heavily but smiling faintly. "It's done," he said simply. The Royal Guard gathered around, their usual stern expressions softened with respect and awe. Kyrill approached, his voice quieter than before. "Human, you just saved countless lives today. Yet you ask nothing, seek nothing, and fear nothing. How do you do it?" Joran shrugged. "I do what is necessary. That's all. I fix what is broken. People live because someone cares enough to try. That is reward enough for me." The Royal Guard remained silent, realizing the weight of his words. The convoy's crews offered thanks, gifts, and explanations, but Joran waved them away. "Keep moving. Protect what you can. That is all I require." Even Kyrill, used to rigid orders and loyalty enforced by authority, felt humbled. Here was a human who commanded respect not through force, but through action and principle. As the spaceport returned to relative calm, Joran guided the convoy safely to the docking stations. Engineers and crew marveled at his abilities, while the Royal Guard noted every detail, storing it for future consideration. Joran returned to his workshop without pause, moving past the machines and tools as though nothing extraordinary had occurred. Kyrill lingered outside the workshop, watching the human disappear inside. Sparks from repaired engines and flickering energy panels illuminated the workshop windows, casting a warm glow. The Royal Guard had arrived to enforce rules and demand answers, yet they left with lessons learned, respect earned, and a deeper understanding of the quiet power this human possessed. In the stillness of the workshop, Joran resumed his work, adjusting conduits and repairing minor systems as if the battle had never happened. Outside, the spaceport hummed with life, unaware that the human who charged nothing had just turned disaster into survival. And in the quiet, the Royal Guard recognized something profound. Courage, skill, and selflessness could be far more powerful than any weapon or command. The spaceport was quiet again, though the air still carried the faint scent of smoke and ozone from the earlier chaos. Joran returned to his workshop, stepping over cables and scattered tools, his hands still smudged with grease and energy residue. Outside, the Royal Guard lingered, their presence more respectful than before. Kyrill approached slowly, observing the human with curiosity and a newfound understanding. "You have done more than repair machines, human," Kyrill said carefully. "You have stabilized lives, guided people through danger, and faced threats without hesitation. I came to demand answers, yet I leave with questions of my own." Joran looked up from the drone he was calibrating. "There is nothing to explain," he said simply. "I fix what is broken. I help where I can. That is all. If it inspires or changes others, that is fortunate but not my goal." Kyrill's eyes softened, the stern armor and weaponry feeling out of place in the calm glow of the workshop. "You act without desire for reward, without ambition, yet your actions carry consequences far beyond your understanding." "Why?" Joran shrugged lightly. "Because someone has to. Because waiting for authority, for orders, for credit, wastes time and can cost lives. I do not work for glory but for necessity." The Royal Guard had been taught that power and authority determined action, that rules were absolute, and that obedience was the highest virtue. But here was a human who defied all of it, not recklessly but with purpose, clarity, and principle. They began to see that skill combined with selflessness could surpass even their most rigid structures. Kyrill studied the humming machines, the repaired engines, and the stabilized drones. "Your workshop, it is more than a place of repair. It is a place of learning, of preparation, of influence. Others could follow your example. Joran smiled faintly. If they do, that is good. If they don't, I still repair what I can. One act at a time. That is all I need to do. A young guard stepped forward, hesitant but eager. Sir, can humans really act like this? Without expectation, without calculation? Cairo paused, realizing he had no simple answer. He gestured toward Joran, who was carefully monitoring energy flows in a small alien device. Yes, Cairo said finally. Apparently they can. And when they do, they can teach us something we never expected to learn. The rest of the Royal Guard began inspecting the workshop quietly, not as enforcers, but as observers, learning from the human before them. They noted his methods, his calmness under pressure, and his ability to balance danger and precision. Machines, once lifeless, were restored to functionality. Drones, once abandoned, now hovered steadily. All of it reflected a philosophy rooted in patience, focus, and principle rather than fear or reward. Joran moved to a partially repaired transport engine, adjusting conduits with steady hands. Sparks flew harmlessly as he balanced energy flows, the hum of machinery filling the room. Cairo watched closely, realizing that this human had not only survived the test of trust and chaos, but had also transformed the perception of the Royal Guard themselves. They had come expecting defiance, rebellion, or excuses. Instead, they found skill, calm, and courage paired with humility. Outside, the convoy ships were preparing to leave, their engines stable and life support systems fully operational. Crew members waved at the workshop, their gratitude obvious, though Joran did not seek it. He merely nodded, returning to his work as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Cairo turned to his guards, his voice low. Observe him. Learn from him. A human without ambition can teach us more than we imagined. The day passed and the sun reflected off the metal hulls of docked ships. Inside the workshop, Joran continued to repair, calibrate, and stabilize. Each machine, each conduit, each energy flow received the same care and attention as the last. The Royal Guard, who had once demanded answers, now quietly absorbed knowledge, understanding that respect and influence could exist without authority or command. Finally, Cairo approached Joran one last time. You have changed more than machines today, he said. You have changed how we think. Perhaps, in time, we can act with the same clarity, courage, and principle you demonstrate. Joran smiled faintly. I hope so, he said simply. But remember, action matters more than words. Do what is right, fix what is broken, and help where you can. That is enough. The Royal Guard departed, leaving Joran alone in the workshop, the hum of repaired machines and flickering lights the only sounds. Outside, the spaceport continued its daily rhythm, unaware that a single human had not only saved lives but had reshaped the understanding of duty, courage, and trust. Joran returned to his workbench, picking up a small alien drone, adjusting its energy flow with care. Sparks danced harmlessly around him, light reflecting off his focused expression. For him, the day was ordinary, filled with repair and patience. But for the Royal Guard and for the crews he had saved, his actions would leave a lasting mark. In the quiet of the workshop, with machines humming steadily and lights casting a soft glow, a simple truth became clear. Skill without ambition, courage without fear, and principle without reward could inspire more than any order or command ever could. And in that quiet understanding, the galaxy had witnessed the extraordinary power of one human who charged nothing, and changed everything.